Hello everyone, this is the second part of chapter locomotion and movement, and in this video we're going to discuss some objective questions related to the second topic, which is axial skeleton. So let's continue, and the very first question number 42 is the bony socket of the jaws in which teeth are implanted are known as number 1 alveolus, number 2 fossae, number 3 dentaries, and number 4 thecae. Now alveolus, it is a thickened ridge of bone that contains tooth socket, whereas fossae, it is a shallow depression in a bone, and dentaries are the interior bone of the lower jaw which bear teeth, and thecae are the loose sheaths enclosing the spinal cord. So the answer is option number 1 alveolus. Next is question number 43. In case of most of mammals, including man and giraffe, the number of cervical vertebrae are number 1, 8, number 2, 7, number 3, 9, number 4, 10. Cervical vertebrae, these are the bony rings present in the neck between the base of the skull and thoracic vertebrae in trunk. These are basically 7 in number from C1 to C7 and most delicate bones. C1 and C2, these are the two vertebrae which allow the neck movement, and C1 it is known as atlas, whereas C2 is known as axis. So the answer is option number 2, 7. Next is question number 44. The number of vertebrae in rabbit is number 1, 40, number 2, 33, number 3, 44, and number 4, 46. The number of vertebrae in rabbit is 46. So the answer is option number 4. Next is question number 45. Lumbar vertebrae are found in number 1 neck region, number 2 abdominal region, number 3 hip region, and number 4 thorax. Lumbar vertebrae, these are basically 5 in number from L1 to L5 and slightly inward curved and present in the lower back of the body, which is the abdominal region. So the answer is option number 2 abdominal region. Next is question number 46. Which one is odd pair? Number 1 femur and humerus, number 2 tibia radius, number 3 axis atlas, number 4 tarsal and carpal. Femur is the leg bone, humerus is the arm bone. Next, second is tibia is the leg bone and radius is the arm bone, and third is atlas and axis, these both are the cervical vertebrae C1 and C2. Next is tarsal and carpal. Tarsal is the foot bone and carpal is the hand bone. So the odd one is option number 3 axis and atlas. So the answer is option number 3. Next is question number 47. Coaxial bone is formed of by the fusion of dash bone in mammal. Number 1 3 vertebrae, number 2 6 vertebrae, number 3 5 vertebrae, and number 4 4 vertebrae. Coaxial gland, it is also known as coccyx and tailbone. It is the smallest triangular shaped bone located at the bottom of the spine, which is composed of 3 to 5 coaxial vertebrae, and coaxial bone is formed by the fusion of 4 vertebrae in case of mammals. So the answer is option number 4. Next is question number 48. Intervertebral disc is number 1 fibrocartilage between the centrum of vertebrae, number 2 pad in the centrum of bone, number 3 cartilage bone in the body, and number 4 body of vertebrae. Intervertebral disc, it is a fibrous cartilage, it is also known as cushion, which lies between the vertebrae and act as a shock absorber between each of the vertebrae in the spinal cord. So the answer is option number 1 fibrocartilage between the centrum of vertebrae. Next is question number 49. The hardest substance present in number 1 in bone oisin, number 2 in chitin protein, number 3 in tooth enamel, number 4 in muscle myosin. We all know the hardest substance is present in the tooth, which is enamel. So the answer is option number 3 tooth enamel. Next is question number 50. What is correct about human body? Number 1 there are 5 vertebrae in neck, number 2 brain box is made up of 4 bones, number 3 there are 15 pair of ribs, and number 4 there are 12 thoracic vertebrae. Number 1 there are 5 vertebrae in neck. We already discussed there are 7 vertebrae in neck, so this is wrong. Next is option 2. Brain box is made up of 4 bones. Brain box, it is also known as cranium. Cranium is made up of 8 bones, so this is also wrong. Next is option number 3. There are 15 pair of ribs. There are 12 pairs of ribs. So this is also wrong. Next is option 4. There are 12 thoracic vertebrae, and this is true. There are 12 thoracic vertebrae. So the answer is option number 4. Next is question number 51. Axial skeleton is made up of number 1. Skull only, number 2. Sternum only, number 3. Complete vertebral column, and number 4. All of these. Now axial skeleton. It is a part of a skeleton that consists of bones of head and trunk. In human, it basically consists of an 80 bones, and it is composed of an 6 part. So it is consist of an skull, sternum, and complete vertebral column. So the answer is option number 4, all of above. Next is question number 52. What is the right sequence of bone in the ear ossicle of man starting from tympanum inward? Number 1, malleus incus stapes, number 2, malleus stapes incus, number 3, incus malleus stapes, and number 4, stapes incus malleus. And the answer is option number 1, malleus incus and stapes. Malleus is hammer shaped, whereas incus is anvil and stapes is stirrup shape. So the answer is malleus incus stape. Next is question number 53. Hello everyone, this is the third part of chapter locomotion and movement, and in this video we are going to discuss objective question related to the third topic, which is appendicular skeleton. So let's continue. And the first question number 65 is, a shallow depression in the scapula which receives the head of the upper arm bone is known as number 1, acetabulum, number 2, neural arc, number 3, glenoid cavity, and number 4, none of these. Now first, what is scapula? Scapula, it is also known as shoulder bone. It connects the humerus, upper arm bone, with the clavicle or the collarbone. First option is acetabulum. It is a deep cut-shaped structure that encloses the head of the femur at the hip region. And second is neural arc. It is a curved dorsal section of the vertebra enclosing the canal through which the spinal cord passes. And third is glenoid cavity. It is a site at which scapula articulate with the proximal end of the humerus. And fourth is none of these. So the answer is option number 3, glenoid cavity. Next is question number 66. The protein present in the bone is known as number 1, chondrin, number 2, oisin, number 3, scleroprotein, and number 4, globulin. We all know the bones are made up of protein, oisin. So the answer is option number 2. Next is question number 67. The bone of the mammals contain Haversian canal which are connected by the transverse canal known as number 1, Byer's canal, number 2, inguinal canal, number 3, Volkmann's canal, and number 4, semicircular canal. Now what is Haversian canal? Haversian canal are found in the bone matrix of the long bone. These canals surrounds the blood vessels, and the Haversian canal which are connected by the transverse canal are known as Volkmann's canal. So the answer is option number 3. Next is question number 68. The cup-shaped cavity for the articulation of the head of the femur is called number 1, glenoid cavity, number 2, acetabulum, number 3, obturator, and number 4, sigmoid notch. We already discussed, so the answer is option number 2, acetabulum. Next is question number 69. Haversian system is found in number 1, atlas of man, number 2, ilium of man, number 3, femur of man, and number 4, lumbar of man. Haversian canal are found in the bone matrix of long bones, and femur is the long bone. So the answer is option number 3. Next is question number 70. Cartilage is formed by number 1, osteoblasts, number 2, chondrocytes, number 3, fibroblasts, and number 4, epithelium. Cartilage is made up of a specialized cell called chondrocytes. So the answer is option number 2. Next is question number 71. Total number of ear bone in man is number 1, 3, number 2, 6, number 3, 4, and number 4, 2. Ear consists of a 3 bone, or also known as ear ossicle, malleus, incus, and stape. So the total, we have 2 ears, so the total number of bones are 6. So the answer is option number 2. Next is question number 72. The pectoral and the pelvic girdle and the bones of limb form number 1, axial skeleton, number 2, appendicular skeleton, number 3, visceral skeleton, and number 4, outer skeleton. Now first, axial skeleton. Axial skeleton consists of bones of skull, vertebral column, and thoracic case. whereas appendicular consists of pelvic, pectoral, limb bone and bones of hand and feet, and visceral skeleton consists of ribs, sternum and the interior section of the cranium. And outer skeleton, it contains the exterior protective or the supporting structure like nails, scales, hooves, etc. So the answer is option number 2, appendicular skeleton. Next is question number 73. Number of bones in the human body is number 1, 260, number 2, 206, number 3, 306, number 4, 203. We all know the number of bones in the human body is 206. So the answer is option number 2. Next is question number 74. An acromion process is characteristically found in rabbit, mammals in number 1, pelvic girdle, number 2, pectoral girdle, number 3, skull, and number 4, sternum. Acromion process, it is a bony process which is found in the scapula or the shoulder bone and which is a part of an pectoral girdle. So the answer is option number 2. Next is question number 75. Which pair do not have corresponding bone? Number 1, humerus and femur. Number 2, pectoral and pelvic girdle. Number 3, atlas and coccyx. Number 4, carpals and tarsals. And the answer is option number 3, atlas and coccyx. Atlas is the C1 or the cervical vertebra, whereas coccyx, it is also known as the tailbone. So this pair do not have corresponding bones. So the answer is option number 3. Next is question number 76. Ends of long bones are covered with number 1, cartilage, number 2, muscles, number 3, ligaments, and number 4, blood cells. And the answer is option number 1, cartilage. Next is question number 77. Which part of an mammalian body has a single pair of bones? Number 1, external ear, number 2, lower jaw, number 3, pelvic girdle, number 4, wrist. And the answer is option number 3, pelvic girdle, which is also known as hip bone. Next is question number 78. Pelvic girdle of rabbit consists of number 1, ilium, ischium and pubis, number 2, ilium, ischium and coracoid, number 3, coracoid, scapula and clavicle, number 4, ilium, coracoid and scapula. Pelvic girdle, it is also known as hip bone. It basically connects the trunk or the axial skeleton to the lower limbs, which is made up often by the fusion of 3 bones, ilium, ischium and pubis. Ilium is the large and most recognizable part, which is like wing-like. Pubis, it forms the interior part of the pelvic girdle, and ischium lies below the pubis. So the answer is option number 1, ilium, ischium and pubis. Next is question number 79. The central shaft of a long bone is known as number 1, diaphysis, number 2, epiphysis, number 3, hypophysis, number 4, zygapophysis. Now diaphysis, it is a shaft and central part of the long bone, whereas epiphysis is the round end of the long bone, and hypophysis is the element of vertebra developed from the ventral side of the centrum, and zygapophysis is one of the several processes on the vertebra that articulate with the corresponding process on the adjacent vertebra. So the answer is option number 1, diaphysis. Next is question number 80. In children, the bones are more flexible and brittle because their bones have number 1, large quantity of salt and little organic substance, number 2, large quantity of organic substance and little salt, number 3, well developed Haversian system, number 4, large number of osteoblasts. And the answer is option number 2, large quantity of organic substance and little salt. Next is question number 81. Rotation of thigh on the lateral side is facilitated by number 1, gluteus medius, number 2, gluteus minimus, number 3, iliacus, number 4, obturator externus. Now gluteus medius, it is a broad thick rotating muscles situated on the outer surface of the pelvis, and gluteus minimus is the secondary muscles that produce the hip extension, and iliacus is the triangular shaped muscle function to flex the upper leg, and obturator externus is function to rotate the femur. So the answer is option number 4. Next is question number 82. Bones act as reservoir of which mineral salt? Number 1, sodium and magnesium. Number 2, calcium and sodium. Number 3, calcium and magnesium. Number 4, copper and iron. And the answer is option number 3, calcium and magnesium. Next is question number 83. The pelvic girdle of females are dash than those of males. First is narrower, second broader, number 3 stouter, number 4 1 and 2 both, and the answer is option number 2 broader. Next is question number 84. Old people are more liable to fracture of their bones because number 1 bones become soft and elastic, number 2 bones become hard and brittle, number 3 bones contain large quantity of organic matter, number 4 none of these, and the answer is option number 2 bones become hard and brittle. Next is question number 85. The function of skeleton in vertebrate is are number 1 support, number 2 hearing, number 3 sound production, number 4 all of above, and the answer is option number 1 support. Next is question number 86. Patella is associated with number 1 elbow, number 2 knee, number 3 neck, number 4 wrist. Patella, it is also known as kneecap. It is a flat circular bone which articulates with the femur or the thigh bone. It covers and protects the interior articular surface of knee joint. So, it is associated with knee, and the answer is option number 2. Next is question number 87. Which one of the cartilage help in early birth of a child without damage to the pelvic girdle? Number 1 hyaline cartilage, number 2 elastic cartilage, number 3 calcified cartilage, number 4 fibrous cartilage, and the answer is option number 4 fibrous cartilage. Next is question number 88. Red bone marrow is present in number 1 tips of long bone, number 2 tips of short bones, number 3 bones of skull, number 4 shaft of long bones, and the answer is option number 1 tips of long bones. Next is question number 89. Total number of bones in the hind limb of man is number 1 14, number 2 21, number 3 24, number 4 30, and the answer is option number 4 30. Next is question number 90. Which of the following is an example of an appendicular skeleton? Number 1 bones of skull, number 2 bones of vertebral column, number 3 ribs, number 4 bones of fore and hind limbs. Appendicular skeleton, it consists of bones of pelvic pectoral girdle, limb bones and bones of hands and feet. So the answer is option number 4 bones of fore and hind limbs. Next is question number 91. Appendicular skeleton is number 1 girdles and limbs, number 2 vertebrae, number 3 ribs and sternum, number 4 skull, and the answer is option 1 girdles and limbs. Next is question number 92. The vertebral column is connected to the pelvic girdle in the number 1 coccygeal region, number 2 sacral region, number 3 lumbar region, number 4 cervical region, and the answer is option number 2 sacral region. Next is question number 93. It is a match in the column question. First is largest and heaviest vertebrae, second strongest and longest bone, third smallest bone, and fourth is the weakest bone. First A option is the largest and heaviest vertebrae. Largest and heaviest vertebrae is the lumbar, so A matches with the fourth. B is the strongest and longest bone. We know strongest and longest is femur, so B matches with the second. C is the smallest bone, it's stapes, so C matches with the first, and D is the weakest bone, it's fibula, so D matches with the third, and the answer is option number 4, A with the 4, B with second, C first, and D third. Next is question number 94. Obturator foramen is present between number 1 ilium and ischium, number 2 ilium and pubis, number 3 ischium and pubis, number 4 none of these. Foramen, it is largest opening which is created by the ischium and pubis bone of the pelvis, so the answer is option number 3 ischium and pubis. Next is question number 95. This is also match in the column. First is obturator foramen, second deltoid ridge, third xiphnoid process, and fourth acromion process. First is obturator foramen, it is found in the pelvic girdle, so A matches with the fourth. Next is deltoid ridge, it is associated with the humerus, so B with the third. Next is xiphenoid process. It is associated with the sternum, so C with the first. And last is acromine process, which is associated with the pectoral girdle, so D with the second. And the answer is option number 2, A fourth, B third, C first and D second. And that's it. These are the questions related to the topic appendicular skeleton. Thank you. Everyone, in this video we are going to discuss some objective questions related to the topic joints, and the first question, question number 96, is synovial membrane is found in number 1 neuromotor junction, number 2 synaptic junction, number 3 joints, and number 4 all the nerves. Synovial membrane is a specialized connective tissue that lines the inner surface of the capsule of the synovial joints. So the answer is option number 3, joints. Next is question number 97. Joints are lubricated by number 1 epidermis, number 2 dermis, number 3 tympanic membrane, number 4 synovial fluid, and the answer is option number 4, synovial fluid, which is present in the cavities of the synovial joints. Next is question number 98. Ball and socket joint can be seen in number 1 wrist, number 2 fingers, number 3 neck, number 4 shoulders. Ball and socket joint, it is a type of synovial joint in which ball shaped surface of one rounded bone fit into the cup like depression of the another bone, and these joints are basically found in the bones of the hip and the shoulder region. So the answer is option number 4, shoulders. Next is question number 99. Bone joints are made up of number 1 cardiac muscle, number 2 elastin fiber, number 3 skeletal muscle fiber, number 4 collagen fiber, and the answer is option number 3, skeleton muscle fibers. Next is question number 100. When the head of the humerus fit into the glenoid cavity joint is number 1 ball and socket joint, number 2 hinge joint, number 3 pivot joint, number 4 saddle joint. Ball and socket joint found in the bones of the hip and the shoulder region. Second is the hinge joint, which it is a common synovial joint present in the ankle, elbow and knee joint. Third is the pivot joint. It is also known as rotatory joint, which is found in the bones of the forearm like ulna and radius. And saddle joint, it is found between the metacarpal and carpal. And humerus and glenoid both are the part of the forearm or the shoulder region. So the answer is option number 1, ball and socket joint. Next is question number 101. Joints of wrist is of number 1 hinge type, number 2 ball and socket type, number 3 pivot type, number 4 none of these, and the answer is option number 4, none of these. Next is question number 102. When joints become inflamed and painful condition is called number 1 rheumatism, number 2 sprain, number 3 osteoarthritis, number 4 gouty arthritis. First is rheumatism. It is a pain in the joint muscles, whereas sprain is the twisting of the ligament of the ankle and other joints. And third is osteoarthritis. It is a degeneration of joints cartilage that underlining the bone, and it causes the pain and stiffening in the hip, knee and thumb joint. And fourth is gouty arthritis. It is the joint inflammation due to the deposition of the uric acid crystal in the joint. So the answer is option number 3, osteoarthritis. Next is question number 103. Joints between the femur and the pelvic girdle is number 1 pivotal, number 2 ball and socket, number 3 hinge, number 4 saddle. Femur and pelvic both are the bones of the hip region, so the answer is option number 2, ball and socket. Next is question number 104. Joints between femur and acetabulum is known as number 1 hinge joint, number 2 saddle joint, number 3 gliding joint, number 4 ball and socket joint. Again, femur and acetabulum both are the part of hip region, so the answer is option number 4, ball and socket joint. Next is question number 105. Joints between the femur and the tibia fibula is number 1 hinge joint, number 2 saddle joint, number 3 pivot joint, number 4 impact joint, and the answer is option number 1, hinge joint. Next is question number 106. Ball and socket joint is found between number 1 ribs and vertebral, number 2 femur and tibia fibula, number 3 humerus and occlusions fossa. Number 4, humerus and pectoral girdle. And the answer is option number 4, humerus and pectoral girdle. Next is question number 107. Tendon is a structure which connect number 1, a bone with the another bone, second, a nerve with the muscle, third, a muscle with the bone, and fourth, a muscle with a muscle. Tendon is a tough band of fibrous connective tissue that connect the muscle to the bone and capable of withstanding the tension. So the answer is option number 3, a muscle with a bone. Next is question number 108. Synovial joint is number 1, pivot joint, number 2, hinge joint, number 3, ball and socket joint, number 4, all of these. And the answer is option number 4, all of these. Next is question number 109. Dash act as a shock absorber to cushion when tibia and femur came together. Number 1, ligament, number 2, cartilage, number 3, tendon, number 4, disc. And the answer is option number 3, tendon. Next is question number 110. Which of the following lubricates the ligament and tendons and is an important constituent of the synovial fluid of bones? First is pectins, second is lipid, third is hyaluronidase, number 4, hyaluronic acid. And the answer is option number 4, hyaluronic acid. Next is question number 111. It is a match in the column question. In first column is saddle joint, second is the fibrous joint, third is the cartilage joint, fourth is the gliding joint. Saddle joint, it is found between the metacarpal and carpal, whereas fibrous joint is found between in the skull bone, and cartilage joint is found between the sternum and rib, and gliding joint is found between the vertebrae. So the answer is option number 1, A second, B 1, C 4, and D 3. And that's it. These are the questions related to the topic joints. Thank you.